Welcome to the Get It Done podcast, where you'll find me, Bradley Simmons, weight loss and fitness expert, chatting to other experts on why health is the key to success. If you haven't heard of our 5 pillars that get it done, they are mental, physical, emotional, social, and financial health. This podcast is going to help you build your 5 pillars, and therefore is going to build your success and, most importantly, your happiness. Let's get it done. Kathryn, welcome to the Get It Done podcast. Thank you for coming on. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good. And you're a sleep expert.
Yes, insomnia specifically.
Insomnia.
Yeah.
A massive topic. I think
Yes.
everyone's so focused on their nutrition, on their physical appearance,
Yeah.
where sleep just gets brushed away. And I think this is a topic that I try and teach my clients. It's so important. Obviously, talk about cortisol level. This is a massive thing. When you're sleep deprived, you're just not the same person.
Yeah.
You don't perform. There's no high performance without good sleep.
Yeah.
So talk to me. Why did you become an expert?
So I really fell into it. My background was in mental health, so I worked in the NHS in psychology, and I was lucky enough to go on some training on insomnia. So it was sort of a 2-day weekend training, and I absolutely loved it. It was so black and white, and it just happened that in clinic the next week I had somebody with insomnia. I delivered the techniques that we'd learned, and they came back 2 weeks later and they were like a new person.
Yeah.
Had that not have happened, I don't know whether I would have got into it, but for me, I was like, gosh, this is amazing. And at the time, this is sort of 15 years ago, like you've just said, sleep was kind of, or poor sleep was sort of seen as a symptom of another problem.
Yeah.
So if you fix the other problem, your sleep would be okay, and it wasn't really focused on its own. But actually, I think now we've moved on and people realise that, it's really difficult to be motivated, upbeat, full of energy, to really achieve much else if you're sleeping really poorly. Even if you're perfect in all those other areas, if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to perform as well. So I moved into just working with sleep, so just using a CBT, so Cognitive Behavioural Therapy for insomnia program. And since then, we've moved online just because I was lucky, because I wanted it to move where people could. It was more accessible than one-to-one sessions, which are time-consuming, not necessary for a lot of people. They don't need to sit with me to do it. And COVID was great for me because it moved everything online naturally.
Well, it sounds like we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love training one person, I feel like if I can impact thousands of people, that's far more beneficial. And I prefer it too. Yeah,
because not everybody needs somebody to work with them on that level, do they? Like, every day. And let's be honest, most people can't afford it.
No, of course.
And I wouldn't have wanted to spend that on it either. So some people still want one-to-one, and I get that, and we try and offer that where we can, but actually it's a step-by-step process. People need the right tools, and I still support them. We can still work with them. It's just in a different format. So
let's talk about sleep.
Yeah.
What do you find is the most common factor why people have bad sleep?
So anything can trigger poor sleep. So it could be something enormous like a bereavement or a job interview or divorce, something massive that we'd kind of say obviously would cause bad sleep. It can be a really slow burn, or people have no idea where it came from. It could be something like menopause. So there's a million different things that can trigger poor sleep. What we focus on is what keeps it going. So the trigger doesn't really matter. And I would always discourage people from spending too long trying to work out why they got there. What matters is, what are we doing now that's keeping it going? And so I'd say, in terms of the biggest cause, whether it's a cause or whether it becomes a factor in it, would be stress. So stress either starts the problem. Even if you weren't stressed to start with, as soon as you're not sleeping well, you're going to feel stressed about it, because it's pretty much impossible. I've never really met anyone who sleeps terribly and just doesn't mind. Most people feel anxious about it. So what happens is, we're sleeping poorly for whatever reason. We start to really become hyper-focused on it. We try lots of things. We buy lots of things. We Google it. We buy and try, and we keep on going. And what happens is that starts to create this really high vigilance around sleep. And the problem is, the harder we try, the worse it gets. If you're lying in bed trying to get to sleep,
when you're in bed and you say get to sleep now, just get to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, you just can't sleep.
You're done. The battle's.
For me, I have to go for a walk. I have to get out of my bed. I have to come back into my room. Maybe sleep the other side of the bed.
Yeah.
And then I can
start afresh.
Just start fresh.
And I always say to people, as soon as you're in bed and you're battling and you've turned over a few times and you're feeling really frustrated and wound up, your body's never going to let you go to sleep. You're in fight or flight then. Your body's now thinking that there's something wrong. So there's no point. You leave the bedroom and you start again.
From my personal experience, the only times I've ever struggled to sleep is going for breakups.
Yeah.
That's the only time.
It's when there's something on your mind.
When something's on my mind. Maybe when it comes to finances, that tax bill's about to about to knock on the door. They're the only 2 times. Obviously, I'm a very physical person. I train often, and I find with my clients, especially, they've struggled to sleep. I've got them doing more physical activity, eating better food, and they're sleeping better.
Yeah.
So does bad sleep also come down to bad physical, nutritional health?
So the way that I always encourage people to look at it as, if you're already sleeping badly, so let's say you take, an hour to fall asleep, or you're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning for an hour and you're ruminating and you can't get back to sleep. If you were to then change your diet and your lifestyle for the better, that would help you to feel better, definitely. And it could go some way in making your sleep a little bit better. The problem is that once your sleep problem is there, what's happened is your body clock has altered. So if I was to go to bed and wake up at 2 a.m. every morning with an alarm clock, after a week, I wouldn't need to set my alarm anymore. I'd just wake at 2. So I would have trained myself to do it.
Yep.
So what happens is when we're sleeping poorly, and let's say we're waking up at 2 and we're sort of ruminating for an hour or so, we're looking at the clock, we're feeling frustrated. If that goes on for long enough, it just becomes a new pattern. So my body clock has now shifted and I expect to wake at 2. Then if I pile a lot of anxiety on top of that and I'm trying lots of things and I'm relating my bed to this sort of frustrated, anxious feeling, that's going to make things worse. And I go to bed with this expectation that I'm not going to sleep well, and, it feeds in. In that instance, simply changing diet and exercising more is not going to be enough. Okay. So I'd still say 100% we should be doing it because it's going to make you feel better. But there are better things that we can be doing at that point, which involve really looking at actually what is the root here? How can I reset my body clock, and how can I reprogram my mind to do it better? Wow. So physical exercise, anything that makes your mental health better, relaxation, all of those things are brilliant in making you feel better and having a healthier lifestyle, and potentially stopping a sleep problem from starting. Yeah. But once it's already there, that's when we would need to add in more CBT-i type skills.
And talk to me about that. Educate me.
So I think probably if I explain what causes why we start sleeping poorly, then it makes sense as to what we would do to get out of it. So in order to sleep well, we have to have 3 things. So the first thing is our sleep drive. So if you imagine an appetite, our sleep is exactly the same. You wake up in the morning and during the day you start building up this appetite for sleeping. So if we build up a really strong, healthy appetite, we get into bed, we fall asleep quickly. If we wake in the night to use the toilet, we go straight back to sleep quickly because that momentum is there. And then we wake up the next morning and we start the process again. So we have to really build up that drive to sleep well. And we know that this is the case because if we were to take a nap, for example, at sort of 6 p.m., you wouldn't be able to sleep well at night. Yeah. You'd either struggle to fall asleep or you'd be awake at 3 or 4.
I don't know how the Spanish do it.
They go to bed really late. Yeah. So that's how they have to build their drive back up again. So drive is really important. The second thing which is really important is our body clock. So it doesn't just control wake and sleep, but it controls hunger, thirst, exercise, hormones, when we go to the toilet. All of those things are in that 24-hour pattern. So as I was saying before, if we get into a pattern where we're waking up at the wrong time or a time that we don't want, your body clock doesn't really know what's right or wrong. It will just carry on with whatever pattern we've put in place. So our sleep drive is affected, our body clock gets out of sync, and then we start spending lots of time in bed and we're doing the wrong things while we're there. So we're wound up, we're trying to sleep, we're maybe listening to podcasts, using eye masks, earplugs, things to try and force that to happen. But what happens is that the more I force it, the more I trigger my fight or flight, the less chance there is of falling asleep. But long term, what happens is my bed becomes a cue for that type of feeling. So people dread going to bed. If you're a poor sleeper, you tend to dread your bedroom, you dread your bed. So you're never going to sleep in that scenario. So those are the only things that we need to sleep well. We need our sleep drive to be high. We need our body clock to understand what we want. And we need our bed to be connected to sleeping, not frustration. And the first thing that people can do to start fixing that problem is to create a higher sleep drive, we spend less time in bed, which sounds really counterintuitive because if you're tired, the first thing that we would do is go to bed earlier. But actually by going to bed earlier, what's happening is we haven't built up that appetite for sleep. So what I always encourage people to do at the beginning of the program is go to bed, even if you could only do an hour later or set your alarm an hour earlier. Work from the understanding that this is not less sleep, this is less time in bed. If you're only getting 5 or 6 hours of broken sleep anyway, but you're in bed for 8 hours, we're spending too much time in bed, not sleep.
Because you need to aim for that REM sleep, right?
Yeah, we're looking for quality over quantity when it comes to sleep. If you can get both in the end, amazing. But quality is much more important. 6 hours of good quality sleep is way better than 8 hours of broken. So even if you go to bed at midnight, you set your alarm for 6. If that creates a stronger appetite and that sort of little bit of sleep deprivation means that you start to fall asleep quickly and wake less, your body clock starts to get back in check. Your mindset changes because you go, oh, actually, I can sleep well. And then we can extend it a little bit. So it's a really small change, but you can see how that's far more likely to fix the problem than simply changing your diet. because that would play into it and make you feel better, but it wouldn't fix the fact that your sleep drive just wasn't high enough. So most people, when they, and I'm sure you have lots of clients that don't sleep.
Yeah, I've got lots of clients that really struggle. I find it in my women clients, especially going through that menopausal stage, they really struggle.
And menopause is a huge trigger for it. And again, if you're exhausted, because I specialise in working with women in menopause, because what became apparent was there wasn't really any advice. It was just sort of take HRT or sleeping pills.
Or magnesium in the evening.
Or magnesium and those kind of things. And actually, for a lot of them, they were doing that. They were spending way too long in bed. And it's because they were trying to have a really long, healthy wind-down routine. But I was like, actually, if you're going into your bedroom at 9 p.m, you're having a bath, a chamomile tea, lighting a candle, relaxation, yoga.
Meditating, yoga.
And 4 hours later, you're still trying to sleep. Then actually that whole wind-down routine was actually geared towards not sleeping. So
but some people might be listening and going, that actually helps me, though.
If it helps you and you relate it to sleep, it works for you. Okay. But most people who have you'll have heard of sleep hygiene, so that the kind of thing, less caffeine, alcohol, bedroom environment. Yeah. Again, all really healthy lifestyle tips, but can be quite damaging in the case, for example, of somebody going through menopause. They'll have done all of that perfectly. They'll live their life really carefully. They don't drink, they don't go out, they don't do anything after a certain time, and they have this routine. But actually, there's way too much pressure on sleep. You're just trying so hard that it's not going to work. So a lot of what I'm doing with people is saying, we don't need all of that to sleep well. If your drive is higher and your body clock and your mindset change, we can get there faster. So we get rid of the long routine. You go to bed at 11, half 11 instead. You set your alarm a bit earlier. And actually that does a lot of the work for you.
Does eating patterns change the quality of your sleep or how you sleep? Obviously eating too late, for example. I think it differs for everyone. So there is sort of research around it being 4 hours before bed that you wouldn't eat within that 4 hour period. I think it differs for everyone. If you are somebody who generally don't go to bed full, don't go to bed hungry, that would be my advice. If you know something bothers you, don't eat it. Outside of that, I think that it's up to you to work it out rather than there being a hard and fast rule, because I know when people were fasting a lot, that impacted people really differently. Some people were sleeping amazingly fasting, others were sleeping terribly and waking up all night. So I don't think it's the same for everybody. All individual.
Yeah, it's individual, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like my sleep is actually very good.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that my sleep's very good, and I have obviously a lot of clients that struggle. And there's certain things I advise them to do. It's like make sure the room is very dark, make sure it's cool.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't eat straight before you go into bed. That's really important. And I think things like magnesium can be very helpful.
Yeah. I would say things like magnesium, again, if you're deficient in magnesium, then definitely try it. If you've got a sleep problem and you are exercising, your room is cool and dark and you're taking magnesium and it's still not working, that's just because actually these things need addressing. Yeah. So I think for clients like that, and I recently recorded a course for personal trainers for this reason, that you're so well placed to give advice, because someone who's trying to be fit and can't sleep, they want help. They're like, their intention is good to try and improve themselves. And there are just little tweaks. So things like this, if you had someone who wasn't sleeping well and they were doing everything right, but they told you they were going to bed at 9 p.m, you'd be saying to them, actually, your sleep drive is just not high enough, go to bed later. And that would make a huge difference. So there's really simple things.
That's crazy, because some people are like, what? Go to bed later for sleep? People are like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's not...
And people, I've worked with people who are sort of, going to bed at 8:30, 9 and setting their alarm for sort of 7:30. I'm like, you're not 18 months old. It's not going to work.
100%.
You haven't filled that window for a long time. So shorten it, take the stress out of it, and it'll start to work.
Nice, that's good to know. And alcohol, obviously, all my podcasts will talk about alcohol, how bad that is for your sleep. And people use alcohol to help them sleep? Yeah,
because it has a sedative effect, doesn't it? So some
wine,
people will,
brandy, whiskey,
a little
knock you out, right?
And it does help people drift off to sleep. The problem with alcohol is it's a very non-restorative sleep. So even if you're somebody who can drink and technically sleep through, you're not going to feel good for it the next day. No. So I'm quite realistic, I think, with people that I work with, that I don't think you need to, unless you want to give up drinking altogether. If you have the odd drink, just accepting that it's going to leave you feeling more tired, but not trying to overcompensate. So you don't go to bed early the next night. You don't stress about it too much the next day. Kind of accepting that you've done something that's going to interfere with it is a better approach than trying to micromanage it. And for some people it works to give it up. For others who are going to do it within, try and keep it away from bedtime as much as you can. Yeah. Drink a bit more water.
Hydrate yourself.
Except you're going to feel rough.
But then there's argument, if you hydrate yourself too well, then obviously you're going to wake up and need to go for a toilet. Some people are like, how do I win?
Yeah. Well, and that's it with alcohol. I think that's why I say, I know for me, if I drink, I just don't sleep well.
No.
but I'm okay with that. It's worth it every now and then, but I wouldn't do it too often.
This might be bad. Like when I do have a big session, I will have a sleeping tablet before I go to bed. So I know it's bad. So I'll know because I know I want to wake up and just sleep it through, get out of my system.
Yeah.
Because
does it work?
I do find it does work.
Yeah.
I'll maybe get up at 10 a.m. and I feel like I've had a longer sleep. And probably isn't the REM sleep I'm looking for, but it's better than waking up 7 a.m. and just having the worst hangover and worst headache.
And how does it impact your sleep the night after?
Yes, my sleep's terrible.
The night after
the night after, of course. The next 3-4 days, I am not myself. My cognitive function is not where it needs to be. So obviously, I am my own boss. I've got different businesses, so I have to be sharp. So I know alcohol affects me massively and affects my business. I've got to do calls with clients. I've got to be sharp for them. I've got to come up with creative ideas for content.
Yeah.
If I have drunk alcohol on a Saturday night, I've had a big one. I'm really struggling the following week. Did you know that 1 in 5 have a gym membership but don't actually go? If you're listening and that sounds all too familiar, I have the solution. Get It Done, my wellness app, provides you with the choice between personalized gym guides, goal-specific guides, and hundreds of home workouts. You'll also get exclusive access to our community events and retreats. So whether it's time to cancel your gym membership and work out at home, or bring some structure and success to your gym schedule, the GID app can do just that for £18.99 a month. Not only that, we provide recipes and nutritional guidance so you can partner your workout regime with the right meal plans for optimal results. Life's too short to pay for a gym membership you're not using. It's time to get it done.
So I'd be interested, an experiment that you could do for yourself would be to not take the sleeping tablet and see how you feel the next few days. Because when we take, and I'm not anti-sleeping tablets at all, the problem when you take them ad hoc is we get something called rebound insomnia, which is where you can expect to sleep really badly the night after having taken one. Really? And it's because you slept in until 10, so your sleep drive is now less because you slept in longer. Your body is craving, it doesn't get the same medication that it got the night before. So you might find that actually the sleeping tablet is part of the problem for the next 3 or 4 days, that actually your sleep is the next few days are ruined, not necessarily from the alcohol, but from the combination of the alcohol and the tablet. So I would experiment. You might be better off taking the hit on the one bad night.
And I take sleeping tablets on long flights as well.
Yeah. I mean, they're good for those kind of things. They work for short term.
But there's so many other clients in the past who take sleeping tablets. If they're going through a divorce, for example, they rely on sleeping tablets. And also with sleeping tablets, it can retain water retention and all sorts. It can affect your gut microbiome. It can affect your whole nutrition cycle, everything. And
make everything feel worse. And you kind of overcompensate. I mean, I'd say I'm not anti them. I think they're really good for the short term. If you're going through something really stressful, then they can really help. The problem with them is that if we haven't then put in place techniques to keep this sleep drive healthy, to regulate your body clock and keep your mindset healthy towards sleep, if we don't put those in place, what happens is you stop taking a sleeping tablet, you have the worst night ever the next night, your anxiety's through the roof, and then you take another one, and then you stop, and then you take another one, and we get into this cycle. And once we're in that, we have to use techniques to sort your body clock out, but also your mind, because you've lost the ability to sort of rationally understand if you can cope or not without them. So when we work with people with sleeping tablets, I always say, to start with, take them every night as prescribed before bed, never as a response to not sleeping. So don't get up at 2 and take one. Okay. Take it before bed. And then if you keep consistent with it, we can look at fixing all the other things. And then when you slowly start to wean off them, you've got a much better sort of foundation in place, especially around, to be honest, mostly around the anxiety. You know, what's going to happen the night where I don't take one? We have to learn to tolerate that. You know, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can build your coping beliefs. You know, we don't always have to be 100% refreshed to cope. And I think it's getting people to understand there's a grey area there, and you're going to need to tolerate it if you want to come off them. And who do you find, like, from your experience, struggle with most with sleep? Is it certain professions? Is it male or female? More women seem to come to present. But women seem to always, they always want help. Men, and they're very happy to accept the help and work on it. Men less. So potentially maybe men would find other ways. So maybe alcohol, those kind of things. Maybe they find other mechanisms or, tolerate it more. I think it's sort of majority of my clients would be over 40s, certainly menopausal, stress. When we have children, it changes how you sleep. And again, you have to kind of change your mindset towards sleep, that you can't put lots of pressure on it because somebody else is now involved who's going to interfere in it, and you suddenly don't control it. You have kids, they are definitely going to interfere. Yeah. And I whenever I work with someone who's worried about that or who's trying to control that, I say the worst thing you're doing here is trying to control it. You just have to accept that we are built to tolerate poor sleep every now and then. Otherwise, you know, babies would be born knowing how to sleep. You know, it wouldn't work.
And
Mother
how
Nature
important
wouldn't
is
have
it for
done
babies to have that routine? Because I've had clients in the past where they've got nannies and stuff,
Yeah.
and they're on the perfect routine, and then I've got family members or friends, and then I just sleep when they sleep. Is it really important for babies? I'm not sure if you're an expert in the baby field, but is it really important that they have a routine to help you with your routine?
Do you know, I think it's so, some people find routine comforting and they know exactly what's going to happen. And other people find being really relaxed and, you know, whatever the baby needs, you will do. I think it's so individual dependent. In terms of babies, I don't know. But in terms of the mums and the dads, sometimes people having a perfect routine causes more problems. And I'm like, actually, just believe that you will cope. Yeah. There will be a night where they will wake up and you won't get much sleep. But we can move our focus onto other things. We can look at other stuff we can control. And new parents, I think, particularly now, often they're both working.
Yeah, of course, that's just today's world,
which is a new thing, you know, relatively new thing, that actually people feel even more pressure to try and get a good night's sleep, which I completely understand. I'm a mother, so I get it. You don't want to have poor sleep when you've got to get up the next day. The problem is we can't control it. So we have to learn to tolerate it and change our mindset a little bit to take the pressure off. It's a phase. It doesn't last forever. And we are designed to cope with it. And I think that the media can be a bit dangerous, particularly at the moment, around, you know, even one night where you don't get 8 hours is going to cause this, and this. That to me is not helpful. You know,
that's not helpful.
It's not helpful. Like, we can't. And who wants to live like that? You know, there's lots of other things. There's lots of
fear mongering within the media.
Yeah.
You have to look at COVID.
yeah. And the thing with poor sleepers is, like, nobody who sleeps badly doesn't want to fix it. Yeah. So to me, I'm like, you're telling an audience of people who are already trying. Yeah. You know, so I think it's unhelpful to read.
And from a male's perspective, testosterone levels. There's a lot of men struggling with their testosterone levels. Life is a lot tougher, it seems, these days. Sleep deprivation is massively the reason why testosterone levels are dropped. Women also, their testosterone levels. A lot of people don't realise that women have more testosterone levels certain time of the month than estrogen. Okay. So testosterone levels are really, really important. But men won't go and get checked. Men won't want to speak out or want to seek help. This is the problem. And like you said, they'll probably go for alcohol.
They'll try something else.
Or sleeping tablets. What would your advice be to these men who need to sleep better? I
think that if you are worried that tackling a sleep problem means having to go to therapy, tackle your deepest, darkest demons and secrets and talk to a stranger, I completely understand why there's lots of people, not just men, lots of people who just wouldn't want to do that. You don't have to. You know, I could help someone to sleep better. I don't need to know the reason why they got there in the first place. It doesn't really matter. If they want to talk about it because that's therapeutic, then they can. But it doesn't really matter, you know, unless it's currently going on. You know, in fact, even if it's currently going on right now, we are where we are. So I think that would probably be my message to people who are trying really hard, men who are trying really hard and they're not getting anywhere with it, is you're probably just missing a few key things that you could do differently that don't involve, you know, talking about.
And have you got like 5 tips, simple tips that people can go, I'm going to try that?
Yeah, so first one, go to bed later. That's the thing that everyone could do tonight. So always set your alarm for the morning. And the reason...
How late are we talking about? Like, what's the magic?
Basically, so if you're in bed for about 8 hours, 9 hours, and you're only asleep for 5 or 6, your window needs to go back towards 5 or 6 for a time. Not forever, but it needs to shorten to the amount of time that you're actually able to sleep for. So let's say 12 till 6.
12 till 6.
12 till 6, if you're not sleeping well.
Okay.
This is only for people, of course, who aren't sleeping well. Don't cut it down if you're sleeping well. So you go for 12 till 6. So first one, go to bed later, wake up early. Always set your alarm. If we don't set your alarm, what happens is your brain has to be sort of semi-conscious of the time. So if you don't set an alarm, you're more aware of the time during the night.
Because it's so true. During you've got a flight.
You don't sleep. You can't sleep. And it's because you're worried the alarm's not going to go off. You're super rested.
You've got a really important meeting.
Our brain is, you know, when we're asleep, our brain hasn't turned off. There's a lot going on still. And if we set an alarm, you can subconsciously say, the alarm's going to sort it for me. So you set your alarm in the morning, you go to bed later. If you can't sleep, so if you wake up in the middle of the night, the first thing we would do is check the time. Everybody always wants to see what time it is. Avoid doing that. So if you don't have a normal alarm clock, if you're using your phone, try and turn your phone down, have it somewhere away from the bed. If you could just get a proper alarm clock, even better, and just turn it towards the wall. So don't check the time when you wake in the night, because firstly, it triggers that sort of body clock response to, okay, I need to keep waking up and checking the time. Secondly, your mind will start to spiral. You know, if it's the wrong time and you haven't had enough sleep and you've only got 2 hours left and you're worried about work, you're worried about performance, you're going to start down that spiral of, catastrophic thoughts. So the clock really plays into that. If you're awake in the night and you can't get back to sleep, and we call it the 15-20 minute rule, but to be honest, if it's been 5 minutes and you're wound up, just like you were saying that you do, get out of bed. So get up, go downstairs, have a glass of water, read a book, put the telly on for a bit. What we're trying to do here is break the emotional connection that you're creating in the middle of the night. So give up, accept that you've lost, you go downstairs, and when you start to feel tired, you go back to bed and you try again. You still get up with your alarm the next day. You just get up, you move on with the next day, because this little bit of sleep deprivation can help you to sleep better. As soon as you're sleeping better, you can go to bed a bit early, you can wake up a bit later. But in that short-term fix, if we're looking for tips for people who are in it now, staying in bed when you can't sleep is the worst thing that you could do. It's just going to leave you feeling
And also,
wound
like,
up.
my parents, for example, they sleep in separate rooms now, simply because mum was going
They
through
get better
menopause,
sleep.
dad was waking up, he was in stress at work. Do you know what I mean? And their relationship got affected by it simply through sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And we as the kids have said, just sleep in separate rooms. We don't mind.
Yeah.
Because this whole thing, like, you're together, you should be in the same bed.
Yeah. And people really hold on to that, don't they? That
Yeah.
our relationship's failing if we're not. And
In the bed with each other.
yeah. And I think, I work with people quite a lot on that. They ask them, well, is it failing? Well, no, we're really happy. Well, then it doesn't matter. You'll be happier if you get a good sleep.
Yeah. I'll come in for 10.
Yeah.
Well, I last longer than that, and then I'll shoot off to my bed. Why not?
And that's the thing. You can. People often end up with a sleeping problem when they're trying to match the pattern of a partner. So if one of you's a night owl and one of you's not, one of you's going to suffer. So you can still go to bed together. You can still do your bedtime routine. You can chat. You can get into bed. But one of you maybe just needs to come back downstairs for another hour and then go back to the same bed or another one. It doesn't matter. And I think it is important to get rid of this idea that it means there's something wrong. I think that if you're not sleeping well, you're going to be snappy. And there's nothing worse than lying next to somebody who's fast asleep when you're not. That really makes you hate them.
Especially when they're snoring, they're adults.
Exactly. So I was actually leaving the room is healthier, in my opinion, for your relationship.
Yeah, 100%. And is snoring a good sign of a good sleep, or is that a bad sign of health?
If it's excessive snoring and you're sort of waking yourself up and you can hear yourself snoring, gasping for breath type of snoring, it can be a sign of something called sleep apnea, which is when we go into deeper levels of sleep, the muscles around your throat relax and it makes it harder to breathe. So it's not dangerous, but it does mean you don't get deeper sleep. So if you're sharing a bed with someone who snores excessively, I mean, most people snore after drinking.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
But outside of that, if you're snoring a lot outside of that, then it's worth getting checked for sleep apnea. And again, menopausal women are more likely to develop.
It's crazy because you got someone snoring, you think they're in a deep sleep, but that's actually
not necessarily. No.
Okay. Yeah, thankfully I'm not a snorer.
No. Not yet.
No, but my brother, he's a big snorer. He won't mind me saying.
Yeah.
And is it something maybe he needs to get his nose checked? Maybe has he got a blocked nose, or is it just his diet? Is it lifestyle? Yeah. Whenever he has a drink,
it's much worse.
It's much worse.
Yeah, you can get tested for it. It's fairly easy to get. You wear a little monitor overnight, and it will check your oxygen saturation levels and your heart. Because what happens is your body sends a little shot of adrenaline to sort of jolt you awake because you're not breathing properly. So,
wow, that's how people wake up with their own snore. Not because it's a loud noise and they've woken themselves up.
Well, I suppose they're in a light sleep, so they hear it as well, and then they're tossing and turning. So people with sleep apnea usually report, well, I feel like I was asleep all night, but it was really disrupted. They don't generally tend to be awake for large periods because they are tired and they can sleep, but they just don't get deeper sleep.
Another one, people say, I must have had a deep sleep last night because I was dreaming so much.
Yeah.
And we know that when you sleep, it's not during your REM.
Yeah.
It's like almost like 5 a.m, isn't it? When you're about to wake up 2 hours later, that's when you start dreaming.
Yeah, and some people remember them and some people don't. And usually if you remember them a lot, it can be that you were in a more disrupted sleep. So you were waking up towards the end of each sleep cycle and therefore you remember them.
Okay.
So people with insomnia often feel they remember their dreams more, but it's actually because they were awake more in the night. Whereas had they gone straight back to sleep again, they probably wouldn't remember them the next morning. So we have to, I kind of discourage people to think too much about the dreaming and what it means, again, because we can't micromanage it. So some people do and some people don't. It neither means.
Because a big sign of stress is that you dream more.
Yeah. And actually SSRIs reduce REM sleep, so people tend not to dream when they're taking antidepressants, but it's not the same for everybody.
Does antidepressants affect your sleep? Can they?
One of the side effects is that they can trigger insomnia and poor sleep. And some people do report that. But I would say to anyone who's in that situation, don't panic. It doesn't mean you couldn't get it back on track. It's not like it ruins it and it ruins it forever. What happens is it can trigger a few nights. You then panic. You do a load of things wrong. You worry too much about it. And then we're in the cycle. So the cycle comes from how we respond to the bad nights.
Yeah, because it's crazy because you could argue sleep deprivation causes mental health issues and depression. Yet you're taking an antidepressant drug which causes bad sleep.
Which can cause bad sleep, yeah.
Like,
but you can get over
cycle,
it.
Isn't it? Okay, you can get over it, but with the right guidance. So you always need to seek the right guidance.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. If you are depressed and you're feeling anxious, your sleep is going to suffer. And it's about working out, okay, what are the different treatments for the different things here? Because antidepressants are a treatment for the mood and the anxiety. They're not a treatment for insomnia.
Yeah.
Relaxation is also not a treatment for insomnia. It's a good healthy lifestyle choice, and it's good for stress. It's not a treatment for insomnia. So I feel for people at the moment because it is really difficult to know what's what because there's so much stuff out there, isn't there?
Of course.
But actually CBT for insomnia is the only recommended program for insomnia. So treat the anxiety, treat the depression, but just because your mood improves, you might still be stuck with this sort of broken pattern. But it's fine. You can still fix it. So don't feel that it's a sign that there's something worse.
And what about screens? Because everyone's glued to their screens, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, before they go to bed or in bed.
Recent research has said that the actual blue light has had less of an impact on sleep than maybe we thought before. However, I think from a lifestyle point of view, I mean, I don't know about you, but if I spend too long on my phone before bed, I just feel like grotty. Like it just doesn't feel good, and it's not a relaxing way to end a day.
No, and a lot of people need to watch a film to actually fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you sleep well afterwards and you're happy with it, it's fine.
It's fine, yeah.
If you are awake at the end of the film because you've only got half an hour in you because of the film, sent you to sleep and then you woke up, it's become a crutch. We really want to fall asleep on our own. Ideally on our own,
because it's nature, right?
Anything.
Humans back in the day, they never needed an iPad.
And falling asleep with TV I think is a real sign of someone who doesn't want to be alone with their thoughts too much.
Okay.
And so if you need a lot of things to help you fall asleep, I would advise, and this is something that I say to everyone I work with, during the day, because we're 100 miles an hour all the time, and we can, as soon as we had a minute of downtime, we'd probably just pick up our phones anyway. Like, you have to make a conscious effort not to do that. Make time to process what's going on for you. So a 15-minute window every day with a pen and paper, and write down what's on your mind. What are you stressed about? What's bothering you? Sometimes it might just look like a to-do list. Other times it'll be, 2 or 3 worries that are reoccurring. It's a really therapeutic way, not because we can fix everything that we're worried about, but it's a really therapeutic way of saying to your brain, I'm going to take the time to listen to this. And if we can start to listen and get it out, it's less likely to come back at 3 a.m. Whereas if we don't do that, we are leaving our brain in a situation where if you won't give me the time, I'll take it, and 3 a.m.'s perfect. So everyone should do that, get into this habit of just trying to process things. And if it feels, when you write it down, it feels bad, maybe it needs to feel bad for a minute, but just feel bad about it then.
Or you could write something down and go, do you know what, it's not really something to be stressed about.
Yeah, and often, you get such a different perspective when you look on paper. In your head you have 100 things on paper. When you talk to somebody who's a good listener, they don't really give you much advice, but there is something therapeutic about someone listening.
So counsellors, they listen, but a life coach will actually write down, they'll do some practice with you. And I find I've had a life coach before, almost like a mentor. And for me, I'm a practical person. So when they put something in front of me, I'm like, wow, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
For example, everything was going really well in my life, but my relationship was being affected. And I couldn't understand why I was so agitated, so angry.
Yeah.
Even though I was in love with this person, or I thought at the time, that life coach mentor made me realize that it was my relationship that was causing everything. And I was like, wow. So I took that equation out, and I was sleeping much better.
Right.
My business thrived from it, and I felt good. I felt great again. Yeah. My mum, my dad, my family saying, "Oh, you're actually really nice to be around." So it goes to show sometimes just writing, like you said, journaling, and figuring out what are you actually stressed about. Yeah. And then that's what you need to fix.
Yeah. And I think because we've always got the answer in us. It's just we need to make a bit of time and space to sit and listen to ourselves. And you can be your own therapist in that way. And it's great. I mean, I love therapy. I love life coaching, or anything where you're like, bouncing off somebody else and getting some feedback about how you're feeling and how you're presenting is great. And when it comes to sleep, if we're sleeping poorly, we can't outsleep stress. If you were to sleep 10 hours a night, but during the day you're stressed and unhappy, you're going to feel exhausted all the time. So sometimes I'm working with people and we say, look, we can carry on trying to work on your sleep, but the reality is this is not a sleep problem. This is a lifestyle stress problem. Like you're not happy, and you are going to wake up at 3 a.m. if you're doing something in your life that is not authentic and you don't enjoy it.
100%.
You're going to wake up. So
100%.
So there's no quick fix when it comes to things like that. It's like you're going to have to do the hard work. You've got to sort the rest of it out, and then the sleep will come. Because otherwise we're just trying to force,
you're trying to force good habits when it's not going to happen because that person's just not in a good place. I would say about 90% of my clientele know exactly what they need to do with their physical health and their nutrition, but what they lack is accountability. And that's where I step in as an online coach. I give you your tailored program, your meal plan, and I give you that guidance and support throughout the whole journey to make sure that you get the results that you want and you progress to a stronger, healthier, resilient individual. So if you want to step things up and really improve the way you feel, the way you look, then my online coaching is for you. So if you want to receive 25% off my online coaching, simply click the link in the description of this podcast, complete the inquiry form and type transformation to make sure that you receive your 25% discount. I'll be in touch. We'll have a video call so I can understand a little bit more about yourself. I'll explain how my online coaching works, and then we'll get to work and we'll get it done. Life is too short not to feel at your very best. So going back to menopause, I think this is a great topic, something that I've definitely educated myself on because I have to with my clients. And I actually remember, I've said this in a previous podcast, where first time I witnessed menopause, not myself personally, I went downstairs to get a glass of water. My mum was sitting there on the sofa, soaked. I said, Mum, you're right, you've just had a shower. She goes, no, this is called the menopause, Bradley. I can't sleep, I've got hot flushes. And I said, Jesus Christ, I didn't realise how bad it was. But she didn't want us to really know that she was going through a bad time, as all good mums do, right? Yeah. So I really educated myself and tried to help her with her lifestyle, her nutrition, her physical activity, trying to get more steps every single day. And even when it came to sleep, just trying to make her come off the phone in the evenings, try and, like it's a wind down. But maybe I should just allow her to go to bed at 11 p.m.
later.
So we're always learning. So can I ask you, why does the menopause cause you? What is it about the menopause that causes women to have bad sleep?
So as our estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, as our levels drop, things like progesterone is part of the hormone which is involved in relaxation. So it becomes hard, which is why we're maybe more anxious, so we can't relax as easily. Those hormones are also involved in temperature, which is why we get hot flushes, because your body can't cope with the temperature changes. So it's the drop in the hormones, and it becomes a real perfect storm for bad sleep, because you may be feeling a bit more anxious and not yourself anyway. In the middle of the night, you have a hot flush. Your body interprets that hot flush as a panic. It makes you start to feel quite panicky. Then suddenly we're panicking in the middle of the night, having panic attacks, and then your bed is now connected to that. So it's a real perfect storm of, we couldn't ask for more things to throw in there. So we adapt. I would adapt the work a little bit for women during menopause, but essentially it's the same. Keeping that high, healthy sleep drive. So making sure you go to bed later, wake up earlier. If you're really struggling in the night, you leave the bedroom, even if you know you need to get more sleep.
So my mum did the right thing to go downstairs.
She did the right thing to leave, absolutely. Well, we need to leave. There's a slight second technique that I use with people, that if you are so panicked that you just feel kind of terrified about being in bed, and in the night, you as soon as it happens, you jump up and leave the room because it feels so intolerable, then I would also be asking people to just sit with it for a minute, because I don't know if have you ever had a panic attack?
I've had an asthma attack, which can lead into a panic attack.
Which is probably a similar sort of like losing control.
Yeah, I've never had a panic attack.
And a panic attack, what happens with the panic attack is we feel, the feeling is so intolerable and uncomfortable that we feel like something really bad is going to happen to us. So your fight or flight and everything is telling you, get out of the situation, you can't cope with being here. So if it's a panic attack and I had one in a room like this, I would probably just start avoiding small rooms, because I go, that's the problem. The problem is then I just get it in a bigger room and then I need to,
Jesus Christ.
It never stops.
You have to stand in a field.
You have to keep, exactly. So we have to keep making our external sort of world different. So instead, when you're having a panic attack in the middle of the night, or something like a panic attack because you've got too hot, if you can just lay with it for a couple of minutes, and a good technique is to sort of label everything. So I'm dripping in sweat, my heart's racing, my palms are sweaty, my heart's pounding, whatever's going on. Label those thoughts. And what happens is, as you label them, you're teaching your body that whilst this is really unpleasant, it's not life-threatening. I'm not going to die, because if I was going to die, I'd run away. If something bad was going to happen, I'd do something about it. So you're teaching yourself that actually, rather than a 10 out of 10 anxiety, it drops to a 9. The next night, maybe you sit again and it's maybe an 8. And it's a really good way of teaching your body. And Same for women who are having hot flushes during the day. So if I was sitting here now and having a hot flush, you feel panicked and you're like, oh God, I just got to get out of this room. Actually, if you can just stay with it, you teach your body it's horrible, but it's not life-threatening.
Okay,
so
good.
For menopausal women, there's two parts. Firstly, if you're really struggling, leave the room, but make sure you are also tolerating it.
That's like a good metaphor of life, though. Don't run away from your issues.
Absolutely.
Deal with them.
Yeah, because we can cope with anything. We can.
Of course.
But
the
we
human
don't
body is
believe
incredible.
we can. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's really good.
Oh, and sorry, and then another thing for menopausal women would absolutely be around writing stuff down. Make sure you're managing your stress levels during the day. You know, life's going to be quite hard during that period. HRT can be really helpful. Again, a bit like sleeping pills. If the HRT minimises the symptoms, that's amazing.
Yeah.
If you're still left with the sleep problem, don't panic. It's just that things have got out of
Yeah, because I've
shape.
spoken to some experts and they're so for HRT.
Yeah.
And I've got some people that say they're against it. But from the evidence I've seen and the data I've seen, HRT is amazing.
I mean, I think everyone
but some women
should have access to
I think some women are too proud to take it as well, which I've noticed.
There's a very sort of long-lasting fear around it, isn't there?
Yeah.
That, I mean, my mum was always, it's dangerous, you'll get cancer if you take it. And that was a study a long time ago that's been proven wrong.
Like breast cancer, right?
Yeah, and it's not.
Because of estrogen levels. Yeah, but that's been proven wrong.
It's been. I think the sample was a sample of women over a certain age that didn't match what we were trying to say.
If HRT is going to help balance out your hormones, then everything else is going to benefit.
Yeah, and it can reduce hot flushes. It can reduce the anxiety, and it can make you feel a bit more like your old self.
Yeah.
So you might still be left with a sleep problem, but we can fix that. So HRT is is a treatment, but it's more of a treatment for all the symptoms rather than just the insomnia. But I've worked with lots of women who've said their sleep has got much better since taking HRT.
But even like men with TRT. Testosterone replacement, so they sleep better because of it as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just women with HRT.
No.
Men are starting to actually be educated about TRT around the age of 50 as well.
Yeah. People are just too proud, maybe.
The people are just too proud
to go and ask for it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like men with hair transplants. I think they're becoming, I want to get one done as well.
Yeah.
So the more people do it, the more people talk about it, the less the shame there is or
Yeah.
embarrassment there is.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, when it gets to 50, will I do a TRT? I'll definitely look into it. I'll look at what my testosterone levels are saying. I'll have a blood test. And if I feel like I need it, if it's going to enhance my performance, my cognitive function, then I'll take it. But I'm not going to abuse it. And I'm going to seek the right help and the right, obviously, expert advice.
And I think that's the same for lots of medications, like antidepressants. People never want to take them. And there's still a stigma attached and people want to get there on their own. But pretty much anyone I've ever worked with who starts to take them, so say they're too anxious to make any of these changes that I'm talking about today, they're like, I just couldn't go to bed late, so they're so filled with anxiety about it. Then I would say to them, okay, go and speak to the doctor about anxiety medication, and they don't want to take it until the day you feel better. And then you take them, you start to feel better, and you go, I couldn't give a toss how I got here. I just feel better. Yeah. And that's all that really matters, isn't it? Like, let's just get to the place where we feel good. And then you can tailor your lifestyle and you can start making healthier changes and get there on your own. But
that's the argument. Like, there's an argument that doctors just give antidepressants without asking about their lifestyle or encourage them to change their nutrition or do physical exercise. Because there was a study, I think it was done in America, where it showed that physical exercise is better than antidepressants when it comes to changing your mood swing, right? Because you get release those endorphins and that dopamine. But a lot of people need antidepressants to even get their running trainers on. Yeah. Which is sad, really.
Yeah. So as long as they take them, but then they start doing the exercise. Yeah. And that I think is a really good strategy. Yeah. Like if you're going to take medication, sleeping pills, antidepressants, anything, there's no problem with that at all. But then you just need to remember that you're going to need.
But then I've had clients that said, Brad, I wish I never took antidepressants because I'm so reliant on them now.
Right.
Even when I am exercising, I'm so reliant on them.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to individual cases, doesn't it? I've been very fortunate that physical exercise has been something I've done since the age of 3. I've had older siblings. I signed for Chelsea age of 7. So I've always been in that competitive world of sport. And for me, that's built resilience. It's built tough character. And I've taken that into my career now. And I think that's so important from a young age. Get your kids doing sport from really young.
And do you notice a difference in yourself from a mental health perspective? If you're not exercising, do you feel it?
Oh, big time. If I'm not exercising, I sense it big time. Yeah. In my self-esteem and confidence, I feel a little bit fluffy, maybe gaining a bit of weight, and I don't feel confident in my clothes. That's too. But no, just when you've achieved something in the morning, like a tough run, and I did a run the other day, it was freezing. I was like, I'm not enjoying this. Mm-hmm. But I achieved it and it made me feel good. So then I came into my podcast, I went into my meetings, did my content with a boost of confidence because I achieved something that day. Yeah. And I think that is so priceless.
Yeah.
And even there was a trend on everyone doing ice baths. Yeah. I used to do them. I still do them every now and again. But it was like 3 minutes, which was painful. horrible.
Yeah.
But I came out of there go, well, if I can achieve that today, I can achieve
feel
anything.
good.
So it's a sense of just doing something difficult will make everything easier. And I think in today's world, too many people tend to run away from tough challenges, which is why they struggle with anxiety, because when they've hit with a problem or a challenge, they don't know what to do with themselves.
Build the resilience.
So
and I know there's an analogy that I'd read about. You know, if you stub your toe, the reason it's meant to hurt is to teach you not to stub your toe again.
Yeah.
If we start protecting ourselves from ever stubbing our toe, then you never know. And I love that idea of it's about the sense of achievement necessarily more so than necessarily enjoyment. So if you're feeling a bit low, forget enjoying something. Just do it because you'll feel better having had done it. And that's a really good stepping stone for people to say, okay, you can get to a place where you start to enjoy it, but in the beginning, don't expect to.
Yeah.
If you're expecting to enjoy a long run when you don't run, you're not going to.
Of course, 100%.
But that's all right. Just do it and you'll feel good about the fact you did it.
It's the little wins you need every single day. You need to find those little wins. If you're not winning in life, you're not got those small wins every single day, you're going to build up this lack of confidence, which then I think goes into
things like sleep
anxiety and sleep, because you just feel like you've got no purpose. You feel useless in a way. And then you start thinking too much. And obviously the brain, it's just crazy. If you start thinking too much, then of course you're going to have these issues. And I go back to, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, is when I went for a breakup, I was thinking too much. Who's she with now? What's she doing? All that type of stuff. When it comes to financial problems, as every man always, biggest stress for men is breakups and financial. And it's like, Jesus, that tax bill's going to come in. God, that's going to struggle because I'm trying to invest in this. I'm trying to invest in that. Jesus Christ. So for me, I've had those experiences of those nights where I've really struggled. But as I've got older, I've just realised, like you said, you're not going to die. It's going to be okay. You've been able to deal with it in the past. You'll be able to deal with it again for sure.
And it's not, it's not about pretend like being sort of fake positive in terms of, I know I'll sleep well tonight when you won't. It's not that. It's just learning to see if your thought process is, I never sleep well, I won't cope at work tomorrow. That's a really, it's a catastrophic thought which will lead to a lot of anxiety. If you can just tweak it to say, I probably will get some sleep tonight and I always do get the job done. Whether I enjoy it, whether I feel good while I'm doing it is neither here nor there. But I do get it done. I've never lost a job because I was tired. In fact, no one's even mentioned the fact that I look tired. So we can pick away at things and go, actually, so it's still not an amazing outcome, but it's better than the one that said I wasn't going to cope. And I think that's part of the writing things down is when you see it on paper, go, look, is this realistic? And I worked with a lady recently, and her thought process was that if she was tired, she'd be irritable with her son, and that would make her a bad mother. So we had to unpick that and go, well, most parents are tired. Are they all bad parents?
No,
we get irritated all the time. It doesn't make you a bad parent. And actually, for her, that was enough to kind of go, oh, do you know what? You're right. Sleep is sleep. It'd be great if I could get more of it, but it's not the end of the world. Like, I do lots of things that make me a good mum. It wasn't just the fact that I was well slept. That wasn't the only thing.
Of course.
So, and I think exercise, writing things down. So those lifestyle things really help with perspective. Sure. And otherwise, it's 3:00 in the morning, and that's not a rational time to be. I mean, I think the suicide rate is highest at 3 or 4 in the morning for that reason. Because that we just can't. I mean, we've all been there. Like, you're thinking it's something at 4 in the morning that in the afternoon you go, God, I can't believe I even cared about that. But at 4 a.m.
And suicidal with women is higher in menopausal women, right?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Get It Done, we talk about the 5 pillars, and I always discuss what the physical health, mental health, emotional health, social health, and financial health. And I always say, without good physical health, all the other pillars will struggle. But with you here, without good sleep, they're all going to struggle. Physical health, mental health, emotional health. Because obviously, when you're bad, or bad sleep, emotionally, are you erratic? Do you make bad choices? When it comes to your social health as well, like you can't be asked to social. You're so tired. Or you're socializing with the wrong type of people, so you get back drinking alcohol to keep yourself going. And then when it comes to your financial health, if you're sleep deprived, you haven't got good sleep, you haven't got the right energy to be your best self. You ain't performing at a high performance level. But I guess we can agree that bad sleep is going to affect all of those 5. Accountability is most people's downfall when it comes to reaching health and fitness goals. You've got the gym membership, you've got the best intentions, you know what you want to achieve, but you just can't seem to stay consistent, so you give up or settle for little or no results. My one-to-one coaching is designed to create a specific plan for you to follow with your goals in mind. But with the added bonus of regular check-ins and communication, you will have the accountability you're missing and therefore no choice but to level up and get it done. So if you're listening to this episode and it's time to level up, hold yourself accountable and get the results you want, I'll give you 20% off my one-to-one coaching. All you have to do is include the word transform in your inquiry form. Link in the episode description.
Yeah. I think, and I mean, in the short term, we can see that we don't look as good, we don't feel as good, we're a bit more irritated. But long term, it is connected to heart disease, obesity. People do struggle to lose weight when they're not sleeping well. So again, if you're doing everything right but you're not sleeping well, that could be the reason.
Is that because of cortisol levels, or is that because they try and get their energy levels up? They're going for high calorific meals.
So behaviourally,
snacks.
We tend to make bad food choices if we're tired.
Yeah.
People eat more calories and probably the wrong type of ones because we're tired and we want something sugary. We want an energy boost.
A lot of caffeine. You're going to
more
Starbucks,
caffeine.
getting a frappuccino.
You just make bad choices, don't you, when you're tired. But also it affects our hormone levels of leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin.
Yeah.
Ghrelin.
So that's the
So
appetite.
the one that makes that decides how hungry you are, but also how full you are.
Mm-hmm.
And when those aren't balanced, we end up eating too much, and our body doesn't tell us that we're full. So this is why the training course that I did for PTs was so important, because I was like, as a PT, if you have someone who's not sleeping well, that could be half the problem. If we get them sleeping well, maybe they suddenly get lots of results that they weren't getting before and they didn't know why. So sleep impacts upon lots of things and definitely makes it harder to reach goals in all of those areas. So we need to prioritise sleep. We need to prioritise it in the right way. So prioritising it doesn't mean perfect sleep hygiene, obsessing about sleep, tracking it and all the rest of it. It means getting the right techniques in place to give us the foundations for good sleep, which are totally doable. Everyone can start to do those. So the things that we've talked about today, these aren't huge changes. No. They're pretty doable for most people.
And that get it done, I say health is the key to success. Yeah. What would you say is the key to success?
Sleep.
To round it up.
I think within balance, I think it's really important to get the best quality sleep that you can get, definitely, and quality, not quantity.
Also, invest in a good mattress, pillows,
duvets. If they're the problem,
key, right?
If they're the problem, yes. What I don't advise people to do is do all of that and find they still can't sleep well.
And then you get pissed off even more, and they get frustrated
because then you
spent 10 grand on a bed and a really nice Egyptian cotton.
And you still don't sleep well. So I'd always say, like, if you know your mattress is not good enough, replace it. If you're just not sleeping well and you're wondering if your mattress is not good enough, that's not where to spend your money. Okay. Go and look at CBT first.
Okay, we'll leave it on that. Thank you so much for coming. Such an interesting topic, and a topic that we all need to discuss and talk. So where can people follow you or reach out to you?
So on Instagram at the Insomnia Clinic, and if you are a PT who's interested in getting the qualification in how to help people sleep better, then send me a message on there. theinsomniaclinic.co.uk. I've got a free webinar as well, and the online course. And the online course includes my support, so people join a private group. So you're not on your own with it. You work through the videos, but I'm there at any point if someone needs to ask questions and say, this happened, what should I do? Then I can still support. So
I'll give you a shout for that as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll do this again. Let's get another time. Right, take care.